Hello everybody, my name is Micah, and today, get your web shooters ready, because we're making a Spider-Man plush. Specifically, a Spider Gwen bear. I know, a little odd, but if there can be a Spider Ham, cat, and horse, there can be a universe where Spider Gwen is a teddy bear. And yes, I do consider this canon. Before we check out the design, we have to thank our commenting overlords, which today is this lovely person, who became a lord of the comment section by finding last video's secret word. Your comment makes me feel like I'm web swinging through New York on a web attached to thin air. Now let's get into the design. This design practically drew itself. I could have sworn I'd designed a bear of both Gwen and Miles years ago when the first movie came out. But in checking all my old design pages, I couldn't find a single one. It was really weird. As for the design itself, I modeled it after the design of Spider Gwen's suit in the new Spider-Verse movie. That should have just come out as long as this video goes out in time. That means she wears more fingerless gloves for the pink on her arms rather than the older design where the pink is just kind of stretched across the inside of the arm. This is the same reason why she'll be wearing sneakers rather than point shoes. With the design done, let's take a look at our fabric. This is another one of those projects where I really have to get everything right first try. I just barely had enough teal scraps to make the shoes, and it took a while to figure out how to cut them to have enough. The white was my biggest worry though. I had a decent amount of it, and it would have been just fine if I had been using my regular 15-inch pattern. But I wanted this plush to be bigger. Much bigger. So the hood alone ended up taking a ton of fabric. I spent far too long rearranging my pattern pieces off camera to be able to cut everything. Thankfully, I did not have that same problem with the black. I had a brand new half-yard cut of it, and I just went to town. Pure fabric cutting bliss. Then we have all the pink bits. Now, I had to be extremely careful when cutting this, almost as much as the white, and that's because this fabric is actually for another plush that'll eventually come to this channel. I can't tell you what it is here, but you can both see what it is and vote on if you want to see that plush made next over on my Patreon. Any tier can vote, and once I have enough patrons, let's say about 100, I'll start taking write-in votes and giving away the big plushies I make, just like this one, meaning you, as a patron, could write in your favorite character and win it in a giveaway. But enough with the shameless self-promo. We have more pieces to cut out. Cutting out the shoes was a little finicky, but we got there in the end. Now it's time to start pinning. We'll start with the legs and head before pinning together the outer layer of the hood. We can't pin the inner layer just yet, however, because of the detailing it still needs. We can start pinning the body details on, though. It may seem a little strange, but I do in fact have to only pin little sections like this in order to sew them on right. Then it's time for the pink. The eyes are simple enough, just a bit of measuring and pinning, but when it comes to the rest of these pieces, it'll be a bit more complicated. You see, I have to place pins to indicate the spiderweb patterning on these parts of the plush, and it would actually be simple if it weren't for the hood. I really wanted to try and make the webbing all match up from one section of the hood to the other, but after a while of trying, I decided it just wasn't worth the trouble. Speaking of web patterns though, it's now time to get that webbing down. Now for these thicker lines, I use a backstitch, which can make the fabric not lay quite right afterwards. So while I started sewing them like normal, I quickly decided to switch over to using my embroidery backing underneath, which made things much cleaner and easier. You know what? I think now is a good time to let you in on the first half of your secret word. That'll be OB. Keep an eye out for the second half of the secret word hidden somewhere in this video. Back onto the webbing. The connecting bumps started off a little difficult, but after a few of them, I could practically do them in my sleep. It was all by feel and timing, as I couldn't really see well from the angle everything was at. So if anyone needs a spider web sewn onto a piece of fabric, I'm your guy. Now, with all the webbing sewn on, we'll move on to the Try Not to Get Satisfied Challenge Time-Lapse Edition. There was so much backing to tear off, but I didn't mind one bit. It was so fun to do. It was at this point, however, that I had a little visitor.
Baby, how am I supposed to get work done if you need attentions? I don't really have a spot for you. Did it look good so far, baby? Do you approve? Maybe I'll see if I can find a stool for you or something.
I did, in fact, find a stool for him. Maybe not the most comfortable one, but a stool nonetheless. Once that was done and I was sufficiently pleased with the cleanliness of the webbing, I could start pinning together the inner lining of the hood along with the pink arm patch and the inside of the ears. Next up, the eyes. I was a little nervous about this part, seeing as there was no way for me to recut the head if anything went wrong. Thankfully, it seemed to be so far so good. For now. But I'm always on the lookout for a bit of bad luck. Next, I had to sew just inside the eyes to make that pink outline that Spider Gwen has on her mask. Honestly, Gwen was a good pick for this exact reason. I didn't have to put anything inside the eye holes for this plush. If I had chosen Miles, which, if I'm honest, I'd be willing to make for a cool 1,000 likes, I'd have to put an extra layer of fabric in to make the whites of his eyes, which isn't that much extra work, but it's still an extra step to possibly mess up. What I won't mess up, however, are the rest of these details. I did all the pink details all in one batch to avoid having to change my thread a million times. Not that I've had any experience with that. Now we'll go through and chop all of the extra fabric from the details we ever so carefully sewed on before moving ahead and sewing together the inner lining of the big ol' hood. With that all put together and looking pretty cute in my opinion, we'll move on to pinning and sewing some of these white bits. We'll start off with the toe beans, the cutest of all beans. With one foot all done, I'll use a bit of magic to snap the other one into existence, and then clean them both up with a little plop. Next up, the dreaded body pieces. Now, I don't like sewing details like this at the best of times. But not only does this have sewn in details, they're also very pointy, which makes things 10 times harder to get right. Unfortunately, there's many more triangles and points to make. So let's get into it and hope for the best. You might have already noticed that my head is getting in the shot far more often than usual during this section. And that is a great indicator that what I'm working on is very difficult to sew and usually requires a lot of precision. And because I know it's at best not super entertaining, and at worst super annoying for my head to be in the shot 24/7, we'll skip over the sewing of the back pieces as they're far more difficult than the front one, and the shot would most likely end up just being a lovely angle of my eardrum. Then I quickly added the legs to the body pieces, but they'll have to wait to be sewn until later. Unlike you, when you hit that bell next to the subscribe button. Wait, yours doesn't have a bell? Well, we'll just have to fix that now, won't we? Did you click it? Yeah? Great! Now you won't have to wait to be notified of my next upload. And the next, really as many as you want. And would you look at that, the white pieces are all done! We'll give them all a quick trim before pinning everything that should go together, together. At this point, I can almost see how the head will turn out, and I'm getting way too excited. Calm down, Micah, don't get your hopes up. It may still end up a horrifying monster by the end of all this. Next up, the hood. It's honestly kind of nice to sew something this big. I'm always working with tiny little pieces. It's refreshing. Now, it may look like I'm just wadding this thing up, but there's a method to this madness. When the hood is right side too, I don't really want the layers to be able to be pulled apart, so I pinned the seam allowance together where it would naturally meet, hopefully. Then we'll shove this giant wad of chewed gum under the sewing machine, and do little tacks here and there to hold it in place. And while I'm at it, I'll sew the head together too. While I don't usually attach the head all in one go, the pattern required it this time, so I had to change up the protocol. Hey, doesn't that hood look good? I am a sucker for double-layered pieces like this on plushies, and I'm absolutely in love so far. That is, if I don't mess anything up going forward. Please, universe, if you let any plush be perfect, let it be this one. My waffling aside, we can now move on to the black bits of this plushie. After all that detailing earlier, this is a nice break from all that intense, brain-breaking precision. Just a couple of simple straight lines and a spicy little curve. Then I just have to sew the legs onto the front of the body, and we can start putting this whole thing together. I'll pin the shoulders together and not forget to add the tag before I whisk it away for some magical off-screen sewing. Now that the shoulders are thoroughly prepared for the arms, we'll slap those on and pin the rest of the body together. After after it was pinned, I got to sewing. But this time I needed to do it a bit differently. Because I start the seams on the arms, I needed the thread to be white at the start and switch to black partway down the body. Next, I'll attach the hood to the neck and get ready for one of the most tedious parts of this project, and at least tied for the scariest. That is attaching the head. My hope is that with the angles and seams I have where the head and body connect, I'll be able to line things up perfectly without leaving holes or having anything slip out of place. Now, because this is so important to get right and very, very tedious, I'm just going to do this off camera so I can really focus, for your sake and mine. All done! So far, so good. Now, in order to not have to turn the head back and forth and to preserve the newness of the fabric, I'll be sewing the hood inside the body. No need to flip it inside out if I just need to turn it right side too in a minute anyway. Our first last step will be to sew up the back of the plush. Now, unbeknownst to me, I'd forgotten to leave a stuffing hole and to put in the tail. This meant I had to do some seam ripping later on to fix it. So don't be surprised when she suddenly has a tail that she didn't have before. Now it's time for the feetsies. With those on, we're ready to turn her right side too. I'll leave these shoes for my little cobbler elves to finish up for me while I get to stuffing the head. Now, the part you've all been waiting for. It's bean time! We'll fill this baby up with as many beans as possible, which is quite a bit seeing as this is probably the biggest two-legged plush I have ever made. Then we'll start the bulk of the stuffing. And oh boy, did this take a lot of stuffing. I'm definitely going to have to leave this size of plush for special occasions only. I have a lot to say about this pattern and how my pattern making has been going lately. So if you're interested in hearing about technical sewing talk and extra tidbits that didn't make it into this video, make sure you stick around for next week's plushie breakdown of this plush. Now, today we only need 2 thread colors for hand sewing, black and white. Simple and easy. We'll just need to get this needle threaded with some lovely white thread, and we'll get to work on the snout first. Yes, I did just have the bear doing a headstand. How else would you expect me to train a brand new spider bear? They have to go out and fight crime as soon as they're finished up. And finish them up, we will. Then we'll move on to the part of the hand sewing that will never not make me nervous. That'll be the ear holes. Firstly, I needed to make sure everything was flat and lined up properly. This is an extremely important step. You know that whole measure twice, cut once saying for woodworking? That applies to sewing too. Then I had to do what could absolutely ruin everything. Oh god. Oh no. Oh please. Whew! Okay, we're okay, everybody. Calm down, crisis averted. See, it looks so much better with the ears through the holes. But it'll look even better once those holes are cleaned up. Remember, that hood is double layered, and so as much as I tacked the insides together, those rough edges do not look good. I sewed these edges up just like I did on my Owl House King plushie when I closed up his eye sockets. It's a lot of sewing, but it's pretty simple, and ends with a nice clean hole in the center of a double layered section of fabric. With one ear hole done, I'll use a little bit of magic to quickly fix up the other one before we move on to sewing up the back. Now, one last finishing touch that I almost always forget about, the toes. But now, with the face, hood, back, and toes all done, we can sit back and relax, because it's time for the glamour shots. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm so happy with how this plush turned out, and I hope you enjoyed it too. On screen are my lovely Pixie tier and above patrons as of recording, who make these videos possible. They get tons of fun benefits, including plushie giveaways. This month, I'll be giving away this adorable Spider Gwen inspired spider plushie. Say that 10 times fast. I made this pattern specifically for this giveaway, and it's absolutely adorable. Unfortunately, it takes way too long to make for it to be a pattern of plush that stays on my shop, so this will be the only time you'll be able able to get your hands on one. Unless, of course, you all get this video to 1,000 likes. Then I'll have to make Miles too, and he'll need a giveaway. To enter the giveaway, all you have to do is become a patron on patreon.com/SoMicah at Pixie tier or above, and comment on the new giveaway post out right now. Oh, and I almost forgot. Your second secret word half is EY. So make sure you leave a comment with the full secret word for a chance to be featured at the start of the next video. And if you enjoyed this one, make sure you web that subscribe button and swing on that bell. And if you're a fan of superheroes, I'd suggest you check out my video on making Donatello from Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's an older video now, but I'm still super happy with the plush. And with that, I will see you all next time. Bye-bye!